Hello, everybody. Welcome to Everything in Moderation podcast. We are talking about college today, more specifically the SGA, Anthony's very favorite topic. So he could take it away.
Yes, everyone knows me well. Um, I really despise government interference in my life, and just exactly how government interference in my life it equates to college student government, also not in my life. And when you actually take away some of the quotes, like Reagan has said, that the time most terrifying words known to man are "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." Replace government with SGA, what do you get? Nine most terrifying words known to man are "I'm from the SGA and I'm here to help." But that's really not the most. That's really not the number one thing we're talking about today. We're talking about really the culture on colleges, campuses today, and really how they've evolved over time and really to what they are now. Because college nowadays is really not what they used to be like decades ago. It used to be that college used to be open to a lot of ideas, and now professors only teach like one set of ideologies, and that's just the way things are. And if you don't agree with that ideology, either you'll be canceled, you'll be harassed, the administration won't really do anything for you. But I wanted to see what does everyone else have to say on this.
Well, I mean, there are professors that can have different opinions and they
True.
sort of uh, don't let their personal opinions come into the way that they teach. I know that can sometimes be a hard thing, especially in certain classes like social issues, like anything pertaining to law. Sometimes bias could come out depending on where they are ideologically, but it's no wonder that you do actually see certain professors that are a little more outspoken, um, that don't necessarily conform to modern university standards. They constantly get harassed, and like you said, Anthony, their standard, the way that they teach is criticized by both students and faculty alike. um, I read a book actually about one professor, I forget what university, but he was talking about his experience, but he's also really antagonistic to others, so that it's a surefire way to get yourself in the hot seat. But yeah.
So I actually don't really have that experience at all. I mean, granted, I didn't really take those type of classes, but just for example, like my social and political philosophy class, my professor, the first day of class, she was like, I'm a liberal, but I will try not to let like that get in the way of me teaching objectively. Like if anyone like has any objections to like me teaching something like a liberal way, let me know and like I'll change it. And throughout the class, like sometimes she would say things like, yeah, like obviously like this is biased a little bit, but it wasn't like affecting the content in any real way where I saw like a problem with it.
Mhm.
And also just to like change the topic a little bit, going off of like student populations. I know we're going to talk about this, but I feel like most people think like, oh, college is like a bunch of like liberal students, but I don't have that experience at all. I go to a Catholic college, and just like speaking for this social and political philosophy class, it's like it's an honors class, so it's kind of selecting for like a unique population, like Catholic and honors. So like the vast majority of that class was conservative too.
Mhm.
So if the class didn't have a problem with it, I highly doubt there was any real like bias with her.
Mhm.
And those are the professors that you want to, Eric. The ones that are there. They want you to express who you are with your beliefs. They want you to feel comfortable in the classroom. And where I went to college, for the most part, most professors were okay with students saying what their beliefs were in class. I mean, I had some professors that were not really okay with that, and if you wrote down like your own like about your opinions on like an exam, then you would get take points taken off, which has unfortunately happened to me. So I wish there really, like you said, Eric, really wish there could be more professors like those that just are open to everyone's opinions.
Yeah, I don't think it's right at all that anyone would lose points on like a test or an essay just for like expressing different beliefs. Like I feel like if you can back it up, you should be able to like get the points for it.
And I also attended classes in the business school, so I didn't really come across too much of this. In gen eds, yeah, of course, you get something, you know. Most people don't like really complain to the professor, especially because like your freshmen and sophomores, no one really no one really cares too much about like the outside world too much. They're caring about like how they're doing in college now. Um, but like there were certain like things where I was in class, I'm like, that's a little sus, but like I'm just gonna stay quiet. I really don't care. And then as we went into business, I felt that you were able to more freely speak about like what's going on, um, because it's all purely business driven. So you could be like, okay, like uh, China, for example, is using colonization or what neo-colonization to in Africa right now, right? You could say like they do that. No one's gonna have a problem with it. It's because it just happens, you know. Like there's irrefutable evidence that they can do stuff like that. Where it comes into consideration is when you have like the law classes and you have like the social issue classes where you're like, well, yeah, I don't agree with that, but like I don't think that should happen. And then it just becomes like it could become an argument. I never really had an instance where there was like a huge argument in class. Ironically, the only argument I've ever seen in class with like a professor and a student was one student was like insider trading should be legal. And I'm like, you're a dumbass, but okay. And then
I agree on that.
that's the only like inflammatory thing I've seen in my college days. So maybe I'm not the right person to be speaking about this, but um, you see a bunch of horror stories, and I know Patrick actually told me. I think one of his professors said it was like, oh, like Trump's a racist and like a Nazi or something, and then Patrick was like, bro, what are you talking about? So, yeah, like as much as you can only speak from your own experience. It does happen. I don't know how widespread it is, but you always hear some people complaining. And you also have to know is if the person's doing shitty in the class, they're probably likely to complain more.
That's usually the what happens.
Maria, what do you think?
Well, luckily I haven't had this experience happen to me personally. Um, except I won't say which professor, but I think somebody once in the poli sci department. Um, I mean, it's definitely dependent on like, every individual professor, but some professors like want you to see it a certain way and like they won't tell you like uh s- you know explicitly like, oh, this is the way you should see it, but I definitely have had some like feel of like if I'm not doing it, I'm not seeing a policy a certain way or doing my projects a certain way, they'll like take off points, but it won't be based on like the actual work itself, and it'll be like on like a certain view. So like I definitely feel sentiments for the people that have had this happen to them explicitly. And I think like Anthony will get into that a little bit because I know that it happened to him. But I definitely think it's possible that that happens a lot with professors.
Okay, so just to shift gears a little bit, where with what's going on, do you either think that it's going to accelerate like the quote unquote liberalization of colleges? You could say if you disagree with it, most colleges being like liberalized, um, or you can say that it is, and is it going to get worse or is it going to get better, and how?
Wait, can I
So
just ask a question before we get into that?
sure.
Why do you guys think that like most college professors are liberals? Because like I never hear like a good answer to this question. I never get one I like, I should say.
Anthony, what do you think? That sounds like a question for you.
Okay, so I'll answer this best as way as I can possible. Well, what I've seen in like studies, so I think like the more like you go into like higher education, like after you get your bachelor's, you go for your doctorate. After your doctorate, you go for your master's, then your doctorate. What I've seen is that the people who have like the most education behind their belt, they tend to lean more Democrat. And again, I mean, not all my professors I've had were Democrats. I've had some really good conservative ones too. but it does goes to the mindset of how students also tend to be more liberal too, and how colleges have been liberalized. I think, obviously the United States is politically divided, and it's only gotten worse since Biden took office. I would say, like, we're going to probably be like this probably for the rest of this decade. Unfortunately, that's just the way things really are on campus. I mean, it's really sad to see, like an ideology be targeted like that. And I have some stories that I will save for another episode about what had happened to me. But again, that's for another episode, not this one.
I have like a counter, not a counter question, but like kind of like a follow-up question. Why did I just lose my train of thought? It'll come back to me. Eric, I mean, yeah, Eric, what are some things that you've heard, like some answers that you've heard of like why all college professors are liberal? And then kind of tell me like why you may think that they are or not.
Well, you have the liberal answer that it's because they're smarter. And I think that's a terrible answer. That's such a cop out. The conservative answer is that because it's like a bubble and like they all just like hype themselves up. I think the answer is kind of somewhere in the middle, to be honest. Like, you have these people like all surrounding each other, all like thinking the same ideas. Obviously, they're going to have like some similar beliefs, but also like the people that are studying these issues like so in depth are going in, like, because these are the people like researching, like the higher education people. They're researching like a specific issue and getting into like the weeds of why this happens. And a lot of the issues can be traced back to like socioeconomic status or whatever. So if they're seeing like these issues are the problems and this is what they're studying the most, that's going to be the issue that they want to fix the most.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like they're also surrounded by people who are like saying the same things. So that's what you get.
Or, if their work comes out and then other colleagues like look at it and be like, yo, you know what? I think you're right.
Yeah.
And then they sort of add it to their teaching. I don't think there's like a rule against that. Like you could take something from like another one of your colleagues and be like, yes, this is, and then you could that's the good thing about ideas is you could take them and you kind of rephrase them or add on to them or take away from them. That's kind of what college should be about. And I think for the most part, it probably is, at least in my experience. You see a lot in business, at least you see a lot of different opinions of how to conduct business. Some people are just like maximize profits for the shareholders. Other people are like kind of be a good, like actually try to be like a good business owner and like make a difference in the community. Like there's difference of opinions. Both are very valuable. You should try to find what style might work for you. But it's interesting because what we have and what the controversy of this episode is sort of covering is mainly around like teachers that say like think a certain way. Like Maria mentioned, certain they're like, yeah, you have to see it this way. You know?
I also have a response to Eric, and I think that he raised a really good scientific research question that could be answered with like a qualitative response in like that it would be a lot of different areas that a lot of different variables that you'd have to take into consideration of like why colleges are becoming, liberalized, I guess. But I think that would be like decades long worth of like literature that you need to look into, because like how long have colleges and universities been around, and when you go back to like the 1950s when not many people were getting educated, like were people becoming more liberal then? Like I don't think so. So I think it's definitely been a recent trend in the past since like the mid early 2000s, and that thing has to do with like I think it could do with the political economy that the country is currently in, and like different variables like that like have shaped even own professors like points of view on like their political ideology, and that affects us as like we continue on to learn from them.
So a question I have for all of you: in 20 years, what will a college look like in terms of what they teach, and the demographics of like the professor and student makeup. That's my question. So
All right. Well, I mean, it depends really on how long the political divide is really going to end in America. Like, I'd say, like, it will take an entire generation to fix it. And I mentioned before, the whole political divide started under Trump, and Biden said he was going to fix it, but he's really made it worse. So, um, again, so I would say, I think really to fix the political divide and not only on colleges but also like in America, like people really need to see other people's opinions and not to say, oh well, you support Trump and you're a Nazi, or you support I don't know, like AOC, then you're probably a socialist. Again, well, I think when you look at those words, I mean, I do think that AOC is part of the far left fringe. I don't think Trump was part of the far right. He doesn't even come close to being a Nazi. So, um, I would say people need to be more accepting of people's beliefs. And trust me, look, I was look, I mean, it's very hard being a Republican on a college campus. It's not easy, and I can tell you from experience because I was one. So, um, I'm not again not gonna get into a lot of stories, but that'll be for another episode. But you also gotta see, like look, professors, especially in the political science department, I know Maria can relate to me that they shouldn't be teaching by their ideology. They should be teaching just the facts. Their ideology can be something that can be said like when they taught like in a story they've had, but their ideology should never be the lesson, just facts. And that's why you go to school for one reason, you get to know the facts. And I hate when these teachers, I mean, even in high school, I had teachers who want to teach their ideology, but now again, like now it's all about indoctrination, and I don't want to be indoctrinated. I want to be educated.
I
Maria,
think
what do you,
colleges.
Eric? Yeah,
I
go
was
ahead.
just going to say, I think college is going to look about the same in 20 years.
Mhm.
Mostly liberal students and students and professors. Yeah.
Maria.
Yeah, I think it'll be dependent on like what I think. I'm just trying to, that's a really hard question for me personally because I'm trying to look at like the political culture in the country itself, but also like now with like the pandemic and like, COVID and all the different variants, I wonder like what they'll be teaching exactly and in colleges in terms of like I guess globally too. So like I don't know, I think it'll still be liberal, but I think that there's a chance that like professors' views will have to shift as like we keep moving forward in years. Like, sorry, it's like a hard question for me, but I think that it'll be dependent on like what happens in the next 10, 15 years.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So where do you think college enrollment will be in a couple decades? Because you're starting to see some demographic changes. Maybe more minorities are signing up and finishing college. But now you're also seeing, specifically during the pandemic, that college enrollment has been decreasing specifically in white, Black, and Native Americans than other ethnic groups. So I know, at least for the whites were pursuing trade school or other alternative learning as a alternative to college. Do you think that this is simply just sort of a trend, or it's something that you'll see a shift in the next couple decades?
I think after the pandemic ends, it'll probably tick up a bit. I know a lot of people are dropping out of college because they don't want to they've chosen not to get vaccinated, and that's their choice. Something they consulted with their doctor, and that's the right choice they made. But for colleges to say that, oh, if you don't get this vaccine, we're going to do not enroll you in classes anymore, or even they have religious exemptions and they're still told to get vaccinated. We don't care about your religious beliefs, or you have a medical exemptions too. So that's one of the reasons why probably college enrollment has been decreasing because you have to get vaccinated. And there are people that I've seen stories of where they had to drop out of college because they didn't want to get vaccinated, which is, by the way, like I said, their choice. But I would say it will probably take up a bit, but college will revolutionize forever now because now what we're doing, we're just on a Zoom call because people can just do just Zoom class, and that's pretty much it. So it could be that now in the virtual reality that we live in, that most people will want to do online courses instead of in person.
Yeah, I don't think the reason people aren't going to college as much during the pandemic is because of the vaccine. I think it's because there's a goddamn pandemic. So people don't want to go to class because they don't want to get sick. People don't want to have online class because they're paying $60,000 a year or whatever for online class, and no one wants to do that either. So I think after the pandemic's over, it's going to start trending back up again, and then in 20 years, I think you said it's going to be back to all-time highs. It's just going to keep going up because at the end of the day, people like to say like, "Oh, you don't have to go to college to be successful," which is true. But going to college increases your chances of success by such a high percentage.
Maria.
Yeah, I think Anthony and Eric have really good points. I think so. I read this somewhere, education back in the day, was, up until high school and then you're able to work. But now it's been like college has kind of become like a secondary education that's like almost required to get like a job that you want to be making a good living out of, sustainable. So I think that the trend will go up again after COVID. But there will be still a few outliers of people who have ideas, for like businesses. And it's happened a lot with like computer science too. There are some areas in like certain careers that like you don't necessarily need to go to college, but I think these people are definitely like sure of what they're going to do after high school. Yeah.
That's sort of the argument, definitely, is that
Mm-hmm.
if you want to like become an engineer, you have to go to school. Like there's nothing really you can do about that. And I'm talking about like industrial engineering. Oh, we lost Maria. But industrial engineering, if you wanted to just work in a car shop, that you don't need a college degree for. But I'm talking more specifically like industrial engineering, working with manufacturing, airplanes, like all that stuff. Like that's something that definitely needs some sort of college education. And you will see probably over the next couple decades, the STEM graduates in the United States will increase because that's kind of where the job market is going. It's favoring them. Com sci, engineering, sciences, all that stuff. Like those are all growing fields, whereas some other fields are shrinking because of either automation in the workplace or it's the market's just getting slower and slower. Because like remember, there used to be like travel planning businesses. Now like those things like don't really exist. Like if you wanted to go like on a vacation, like you go to a vacation planner, right? Travel agent. But that doesn't exist anymore. And also when you look at the generations, right? Our grandparents, maybe they were college educated. Our parents were more likely to be college educated, and we're the most likely to be college educated now. Going forward, it's likely that trend will continue. But now this is where it comes to a big question. With all the people that are going to college now, right? That just means more and more student debt. Will there be free college in America? And
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's no way in hell will free college ever exist in America. And I have a good argument for this. I mean, I'm pretty sure Eric and Maria will probably disagree, it's expected. Here's the thing. So not everyone goes to college. So, and the plan that from what I heard is that if let's say if I didn't go to college, because what I did though, like and then I would have to pay for another student's college education, like that doesn't make any sense. And the whole point of canceling student debt would be to because Because Taylor, here's the thing. Well, again, the word free. There's no such thing as free. When you hear when you hear someone from the government says something is free, it's not. It's taxpayer funded. So pretty much when you are going to college, let's say you're going to college, oh yeah, I don't have to pay a dime. Well, guess what? All the other people, all the taxpayers are funding your education. People apply college education that let's say, but someone never went to college, they're paying out for your education. How does that make them feel? Why does it make them feel so good that they're paying for someone else's college education that they're not even paying, like that they're not even going to school for? It's ridiculous. It's something that we don't need in America. And the whole thing I say is this: if you want to get into debt, you want to go to school, your dream school, work part time during the semester, work full time during the summer, so you'll have money to pay off your debt faster.
Okay, Eric.
Do I think there will be free college like across the board in America? No. Maybe state colleges, maybe. But do I think that's, Anthony mentioned canceling student loan debt. I think that is really dumb. That is a stupid talking point by the left, because I think it's something like 75% of student debt is by like graduate students. And if you're going to graduate school, you will be able to pay off your debt. You probably are in a privileged position where like your debt isn't going to be like financially crippling you for the rest of your life. I just think like people on the left like to overstate how much of a student debt like problem there is. It's like a student debt bubble, but I really don't think that's that big of an issue.
So it was really 75%. 75% is graduate students.
I'm pretty sure. I can try to find that.
That's pretty wild, if true. I mean, that also kind of makes sense because graduate school is very much more expensive than.
I think I might have said it wrong. It's like 75% of student loan debt are people that are in graduate school or went to graduate school. So like that's counting undergrad debt as like with their graduate school debt.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Just to give you some more statistics. We have college enrollment, right? So 57% of our generation is enrolled in college. Millennials was 52%, and Gen Xers were 43%. So you see kind of the generation uptick with time. And, now this brings another interesting question. Is college is almost necessary to get some sort of career, correct? But do you think that the college degree is more valuable now, or was it more valuable when Gen X had it?
It was probably more valuable when Gen X had it, because now pretty much majority of people our age have a college degree. So pretty much probably back then when people from like 1980s were applying for a job, they had a bachelor's and a master's, they probably really, really press them on a resume. Now when you have a bachelor's degree, the majority of people have them. It's such in high demand. You're like, oh, okay, that's cool. You're a bachelor's degree. What do you do? But then that's the whole thing, because now there's probably a trend now where by our kids will probably be most of them will probably go back to school to get their masters, and you're going to keep seeing an uptick of people still going to college for more school. And what does that mean? More debt you got to pay off. It's it's kind of ridiculous now. I mean, obviously no one goes to college. I don't think everyone should be, look, you don't have to go to college to be successful. That's what one of the things that makes this country truly, truly exceptional. That you don't necessarily have to go down the same path as everyone else. Like even though there's a plumber shortage, there's an electrician shortage. We need those. They're good paying jobs. No one wants to take them because you have to go to trade school for it. Go to trade school is fine, but when there's a job that's high paying, but no one wants to take it, it just goes to show that people would rather go get a college degree than rather go for where the money is, I guess.
Well, for something like trade school, like a plumber, you're kind of like trading your time and like your body for money at that point, like as opposed to someone who's like a business student or business person. they sit in an office and they're not really crushing their body, but like all these like work with your hands type stuff, like I don't know. I feel like it's not as simple as, oh, we go to trade school, it's just as good as college, when there's definitely a lot of trade-offs to trade school.
I mean, I'm speaking from experience. I
Yeah.
know. Um, it definitely can wear you down. That's sort of the thing. By the time you're retirement age, you're basically shot. Um, whereas people that were working in an office or something, they might necessarily be like that could just be the beginning of their retirement life. Whereas people who worked really hard with their hands, they kind of just want to relax. Or sometimes I actually see most of those guys hang on to their careers way longer too. Um, like I was on a job a couple of weeks ago. The guy's like 75 there. Like he's the contractor, and it's like why like you almost want to tell him like just go home. Like there's no reason, but you don't know the financial situation there. He could need the money, but I would say for the most part he just doesn't want to be at home with his wife. So so one of the things that is always on my mind is since we have a larger amount of degree holders now, the degree is sort of not as valuable because whereas, if you had a bachelor's when Gen X graduated, you probably got a job that was pretty well paying out of college. Whereas now you see a lot of our graduating class struggling to find jobs or struggling to find well-paying jobs. That's definitely another argument too, because a lot of these companies have enough money to pay extra. But regardless, you see a lot of like first time out of college jobs like 30,000, 40,000. And I always say you should earn your stripes too, but at some point, like it's almost holding people back from actually being able to live their life in their mid 20s. It's more focused on the rat race and trying to the race to get, the highest paying job. And it because of this, it also there's not a lot of loyalty in firms anymore because a lot of people hop from place to place searching for either better working conditions or better pay. So where I'm going with this is Anthony did allude to it, so that's kind of what I wanted to touch on, was that the next generation might need a master's as like the bare minimum, where like a bachelor's degree is almost like meaningless.
Yeah, you kind of described like it's called degree inflation. So
Mhm.
like jobs that didn't always need like a degree or like a bachelor's degree, or whatever, are requiring one. And like the jobs that are like actually good, like their salary's lower than like it should be. And I think that's actually like a genuine problem that I don't know how to fix. I
Mhm.
really don't see any easy solutions to it because everyone wants to go to college to get those good jobs. And I think this concept of degree inflation does like hurt, as you said, people in their mid 20s and also like families too, which is like I know you, Christian, you believe that like families are the backbone, and I agree. And the way the economy is set up and like culture is set up now, it's not emphasizing the family, which is not good.
Yeah. So there's too much. You can't get married and have a family on a 40,000 salary. And even if you were two paycheck household, you have 80K. But okay, but now you have a mouth to feed. You have to send that little kid to school. It's not it's not financially feasible, and this is why you're seeing um a lot of adversement to families. Like it's like, oh no, like just you should go have a family like late 30s or like early 30s, I mean, or late 20s. But that's kind of sucks because you kind of want to be young for your kids. And that's kind of my argument is you want to have a nice long life. You want to be there for your kids, be there for your grandkids. Uh,
This
I would
is
love.
this is one of the sorry to cut you off. I just want to say this is like one of the main ideas like I'm passionate about and why like I think that like social democracy is like the ideal political ideology that can like sort of fix this to an extent.
Mhm. Um, And another thing too is, I guess this is a little job advice for you people out there. Um, if you want to look good to employers, doing stuff like certifications and showing that you're actually like certified in a certain skill, that could definitely set you apart because the degrees are inflated. Maybe you get an Excel certification and you apply to an accounting job, right? If a person that they went to the same school, accounting job, let's just say for impossible reasons, they have the same personality. So the two accounting grads, they both apply to the same job. One has like a certification in Excel, the other one does not. To the firm, they're like, oh, this person's certified in Excel. That's good. They need to use Excel for this job. Perfect. So what you're seeing now is, especially, you have the opportunity to take some of these certifications. You have to know that, like, if they're valid or not, because there's a lot of crap out there. But if you can supplement your education with further education that you actually pursue on your own, it says a lot about you as a person too. Not just because like you went to college, like, okay, that's great, but like almost everyone does it. It's almost expected, but no one really expects you to go supplement your education with, and you can do that either with a master's, you could do that with certifications, and you could do that with a doctorate too, if that's your thing. But that all that stuff opens up the paywalls, it could give you more leverage to negotiate a salary. Be like, okay, you know what, I'm here making 52, but I just did the certification, pay me 56 now.
Speaking of leverage, all-time moment for leverage, labor shortage. Let's go, workers, baby. Go ask for a raise, everyone.
One thing I want to add.
Go ahead.
One more thing I want to add before we close out is that a lot of people are focused too much on where they want to go to college, when it really should be why you want to go to college. And like a lot of people just go to college just because they want the college experience. That's not the reason why you go to college. You go to college, because you want a good degree that could, get a good paying job. And that's really the main reason why you want to go to college. You want a good paying job after you graduate. So to those, college students or high school students watching, I would just say, think about why you want to go to college. If you don't know what you want to major in, I suggest just go to community for 2 years.
And yeah, this is good stuff. I originally just went to college. There's really no incentive behind it. But then towards the end of my college career, I was like, I just want to learn things. So that became like my why, but like while I was there, it's so what Anthony's saying, like if you just go to community college, you could find out your why a little sooner and it would be a little more cost effective because then you could just, you can figure out what you want to do. You can focus in on what your path is. And if you want to graduate sooner, you can do that and all that. So the state of the college in 2021, now going on 2022, almost a couple weeks left. It's interesting. We covered a lot of topics today. I'm sure we'll come back to this because there's just such a broad topic. But
I have one more piece of advice for the younger people watching. I found out I wanted to do political science after I took student government as an elective course. So I think that if you can take many different kinds of elective courses, like, your freshman year and sophomore year, I think that would help a lot too. Like